Here's your wrestling news for May 9th, 2022. And your headlines for today include Charlotte Flair injured during I Quit match at WrestleMania Backlash, real reason why Charlotte Flair was written off TV at WrestleMania Backlash, did WWE make a big mistake by inserting Roman Reigns into the feud with RK Bro and having the main event of WrestleMania Backlash play out as it did? Ronda Rousey wins SmackDown Women's title at WWE WrestleMania Backlash. Did WWE fans give Omos an underwhelming reception after defeating Bobby Lashley? Did WWE do their best by revealing RHEA Ripley as third member of Edge's Judgment Day stable? Did Cody Rhodes Seth Rollins 2 deliver as hoped? Backstage update on Roman Reigns WWE future following Trenton promo. Video surfaces of police urging Tammy Lynn Sytch to leave her boyfriend and stop drinking. Cody Rhodes didn't want to be a gatekeeper in AEW, and more. We are kicking off today with WrestleMania Backlash, as last night's show saw Ronda Rousey dethrone Charlotte Flair to become the new SmackDown Women's Champion, making the Queen say the words, "I quit." Rousey got the win with the use of a steel chair during an armbar, and shortly after the bout, WWE announced that Charlotte had suffered a fracture of the radius during the match, but that isn't entirely on the level. While the match was certainly physical, Fightful Select reports that this is very much a storyline injury, and that Flair isn't hurting any more than you'd expect after facing the baddest woman on the planet. Flair will be taking some time off now, and it's unclear when she'll return, so WWE chose to write her out of storylines and off TV indefinitely with this injury angle. During his WrestleMania Backlash recap, Bryan Alvarez confirmed that this injury is just for show, and said that her time off will be so that she can get married to AEW's Andrade El Idolo. In previous interviews, Charlotte has said that she plans on marrying Andrade this summer, so it's likely this will be the reason for her hiatus. As for Rousey, there's been no hints as to who she'll be feuding with next, but whatever the case, don't expect Flair on this Friday's SmackDown. WrestleMania Backlash was an odd night for WWE, and in a rarity for the promotion, one of their big events culminated in a six-man tag match in the main event. Rather than defend his undisputed WWE Universal Championship mere weeks after making history at WrestleMania 38, Roman Reigns was relegated to this six-man tag, which felt more like a glorified SmackDown main event. The fact that the tag title unification match was scrapped to make room for this seems absurd enough, but the anticlimactic finish just made it worse. WWE could have done a better job with the main event rather than having Reigns pin Riddle to end the night the same way as every other show, and even a schmoz between all six men, culminating in a wild brawl with no victor, would have been better than what we saw. There were some highlights to tonight's show, as the I Quit match between Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey delivered from a wrestling perspective. We'll be the first to admit that the build to this match and their WrestleMania 38 match was poor, often being seen as the low point of the weekly SmackDowns, but both women redeemed themselves with the I Quit match. Arguably the match of the night, it was expected to be better than the WrestleMania encounter and served as arguably Rousey's best singles match since coming to WWE 4 years ago. Rousey rightfully won the match, which had some great storytelling, and this will be a huge confidence booster for the new champion as she kickstarts her title reign. Like the name suggests, WrestleMania Backlash had its share of rematches from last month's WrestleMania, and while Bobby Lashley stood tall in Dallas, last night's show belonged to Omos. We're not saying that the decision to put Omos over Lashley was illogical, as he's certainly been built up strong, but it felt overwhelming. Theoretically, this should have been the biggest win of Omos' career, dethroning a two-time former WWE champion and establishing himself as a new giant of WWE, but this match felt like it should have happened on Hour 2 of Raw instead. The two just didn't click last night, although WWE did the right thing by protecting the almighty Lashley. With one win each, expect a rematch, perhaps inside Hell in a Cell, but also expect the interest from fans to dip should this feud continue. Arguably, the highlight of WrestleMania Backlash wasn't a match itself, but instead the finish of a match that happened in the closing moments of Edge vs. AJ Styles. Another rematch from WrestleMania, the match was again too slow to keep the fans engaged, but it will be remembered for RHEA Ripley joining Judgment Day. Helping the Rated R superstar defeat Styles, it was a great moment for Ripley, who has been, for the most part, rudderless since losing the Raw Women's title nearly a year ago. Now, the intriguing duo of Edge and Damian Priest has become an intriguing trio, and the opportunities seem limitless for the group as they continue to rack up new members. One match fans were definitely excited to see was Cody Rhodes vs. Seth Rollins 2, a rematch to their bout at WrestleMania 38. When the two met in Texas, the crowd was electric for Rhodes' return, and the bout was incredible viewing, and it's arguable that no match at Backlash was more highly anticipated than this one. Unfortunately, their bout dragged on for longer than required, and it didn't have the same effect as their clash at WrestleMania. We can't exactly blame the superstars themselves for that, at least it's not entirely their fault, as the magic of Rhodes' return at WrestleMania would have been impossible to replicate, especially just 1 month later. The finish was also underwhelming, as Rhodes scored the victory with a roll-up pin in the opener of the show and grabbed a handful of tights to do so. Typically, this could be a sign of a potential heel turn, but given that we all know Cody doesn't want to turn heel and WWE is in desperate need of over babyfaces right now, we can guarantee this underhanded tactic won't lead anywhere. It's far more likely that this finish will give Rollins a reason to challenge Rhodes again, but with him having lost twice already, we're struggling to see what good it'll do Seth, even if he wins. It'll be interesting to see if they lock horns inside Hell in a Cell to conclude the rivalry, but overall, this match didn't do that well. All in all, WrestleMania Backlash 22 wasn't the best card that WWE will produce this year, but nobody expected it to be. For those fans who came in with low expectations, the show will have been better than expected and did progress several storylines to build towards bigger shows. Whether WWE should be using a premium live event as fodder to build towards Hell in a Cell and Money in the Bank is debatable, but WWE is planting its foundations deep in this post-WrestleMania period. Yesterday, we reported on Roman Reigns, who teased his retirement from WWE at a recent live event. After defeating Drew McIntyre at a Saturday house show, Reigns spoke to the crowd in Trenton and teased leaving WWE behind, saying he didn't know if he'd compete again in the city and that he's moving on to a new phase in his life and career. This took the crowd by surprise, and now we have an update on the situation with the Tribal Chief, as Fightful reports. Fightful inquired with numerous people backstage in WWE after the promo, who say that he's heavily figured into creative plans for the company for the foreseeable future, and he's not expected to leave anytime soon. The prospect of him getting movie roles and eventually needing time off was something that many in WWE have expected for a long time, particularly once he landed a spot in the Hobbs & Shaw film. However, producers, staff, and higher-ups said that they have not been informed of any extended scheduled time off for Roman Reigns. One source indicated to Fightful that Roman Reigns is likely to be accommodated and incentivized to keep WWE his priority after they've focused programming around him, as WWE doesn't see an end in sight with him factored in. This is in stark contrast to John Cena and The Rock, who aren't expected by WWE to have full-time runs again. Another person in the company indicated that they believed Reigns was referencing that eventually his schedule will likely include less house show events. To put things in perspective, Roman Reigns has had 3 televised matches this year, 25 on house shows, and 9 on dark matches. So while he's taken a reduced on-screen wrestling schedule, he's still on pace to wrestle over 100 matches this year. The idea that he could be wrestling lesser on house shows going forward is possible, especially if Reigns has plans in Hollywood and wants to minimize the risk of injury, but nothing has been confirmed by the man himself. Reigns signed a new contract with WWE in August 2019, but it's unclear when it will expire. But with all signs pointing to Reigns sticking with the company, this report has made his comments in Trenton all the more bizarre. Last week, Tammy Sytch was formally charged with 9 felonies, all related to the 3-vehicle crash in March that killed 75-year-old Julian Lasseter. This isn't the first time Sytch has had problems with the law, and it's not just the wrestling community urging her to change her ways. In December last year, Sytch had 3 separate interactions with Daytona Beach police, and in the footage we're about to show, it's clear that local law enforcement are tired of her actions.
Get off the alcohol and stop hanging out with them and stop taking other people's Xanax, because it's putting you in this position.
Sytch has had a lot of problems and could face up to 30 years in prison if she's convicted of DUI manslaughter, one of the 9 felonies she's been charged with, and we'll keep following this case for further updates. And we're ending today with Cody Rhodes, who for years was one of AEW's top stars, having held the TNT Championship 3 times and feuded with some of the company's younger stars. From MJF to Sammy Guevara to Anthony Ogogo, Rhodes earned himself a reputation as someone workers had to feud with upon arriving in AEW, but that was never his intention. Speaking on the Broken Skull sessions, Rhodes spoke about his role in AEW, saying he never wanted to be a gatekeeper who wrestlers had to go through first before they could do something unique. Rhodes said that his role had become a meme, as the AEW starter pack consisted of a feud with him and an appearance on Chris Jericho's Talk is Jericho podcast. Now in WWE, Rhodes is able to do his own thing, and thankfully for him, so are the new superstars who are joining Vince McMahon's promotion. Vince McMahon. Well guys, that's our news for today. Please share your comments below. Also hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to receive all notifications. And as always, thanks for watching.